On the phone, it is a pleasure to welcome David Dayen, now a writer of long form magazine pieces that you can find in such places as the New Republic and the American Prospect and others. David, welcome back to the program. You there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, Sam.
Yes. Well, things have really changed for you. You're so relaxed now. Now that you're off the daily grind of blogging.
Yeah, it's definitely a new frontier. I have less to say, but I say more about it, I guess.
Yes, and you're speaking to us now from the beach. Is that right?
Not as such.
All right. Well.
But
All right. Well, let's start. I want to get to obviously these stories about the congressional action. Finally, well, I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but on the foreclosure review settlement, I want to talk about the S&P suit that was announced, I guess, today officially, and we'll touch briefly on this Justice Department memo for drone strikes, if you have anything to say on that, because I know that's something you also covered. But first, let's start with this story that you did for the New Republic, outlining the California comeback. Is that a fair assessment of what's happening in California?
yeah, I think so. If you go back to the depths of the Great Recession, California as a state had rules that were completely unprepared for a crash of the economy and a major financial collapse, because the rules were such that essentially there was a minority veto over the entire process. And we saw during the Great Recession one hostage-taking situation after another over the budget, where minority Republicans who had barely more than one-third of the seats in the state legislature would over and over again force their priorities onto the agenda, reject using taxes to get out of a massive budget hole, which was at one point as high as $60 billion. That's for a state, if you can believe that. And we basically, the tools of minority obstruction were very large and various. And this obviously has a lot of resonance for people who are watching Washington over the last couple of years, where we've seen these hostage-taking situations over and over again, and these minority obstruction events, particularly around the budget. So how did California change this? How did we flip the script? And it turns out it really was the use of the progressive movement here in the state that took away those tools. I mean, it was the fact that we have an initiative process that can, pretty easily and efficiently change various constitutional amendments and things like that obviously helped. What happened was in 2010, it used to be that you needed a two-thirds vote just to pass a budget, which means that Republicans could effectively block any budget that they wanted. In 2010, there was a vote to make it a majority vote budget. However, there's still a two-thirds vote if you want to increase taxes, and that's half a budget, right? I mean, you have spending side and you have revenue side, and you couldn't increase revenue without a two-thirds vote, which means Republicans held a block on that process, and obviously they were willing to use it.
And we should add too that California has a fairly narrow, or it did, or it continues, I guess, to have a fairly narrow set of revenue-raising tools because of the odious Proposition 13, which was passed back in the late 70s. And I know this only because Massachusetts, well, not only because, but Massachusetts adopted a similar thing. I think we called it Prop 3 in Massachusetts in the early 80s. And I just remember my high school basically having to cut virtually every non-essential program, including like phys ed and art and just about everything that would make a well-rounded, educated citizen. And thus, I am the product.
Sure. Sure. Prop 13 brought us the two-thirds rule for taxes. It also brought us property tax rates that are amazingly low, especially for commercial property. Basically, your property taxes are frozen at 1978 rates unless the property gets reassessed. And businesses have been very skillful at ensuring that even if they transfer the property, it doesn't get reassessed. So most businesses around here are paying 1978 levels of property taxes, which are very artificially low.
Well, I'm sure that means a huge boon for their hiring and passing on those savings to their customers.
They are the job creators, as you know. So, and the other thing is that even local tax measures need to cross that two-thirds threshold, also because of Prop 13 and what it did to the state. So, how were progressives able to mobilize and change this? Well, they put these things on the ballot to change the rules, and then in 2012 there was a big tax measure that would raise a number of mostly income taxes, a little bit of sales tax, and devote that specifically for public education and public safety. So how were they able to sort of break this tax revolt, which is held in California since the late 70s? And the answer is they really changed the electorate. And there were a couple laws that were passed, one for online voter registration, which was extremely critical. 1 million people registered online in the state of California in just the last month before the election of 2012. And the vast majority of them were Democrats, and the vast majority of those that registered actually voted relative to the normal course where people registered late for an election. It was a much higher percentage of those voters that actually went to the polls. In addition, there were massive voter mobilizations in infrequent voting communities, in the low-income communities, in immigrant communities, all over the state. There was a coalition, a network. The umbrella group was named Reclaim California's Future. They had little satellite offices all up and down the state, particularly in these areas. And it really changed the complexion of the electorate. We had a redistricting process, obviously, because of the census, and the expectation was that there was no way that California could ever get a two-thirds majority in the legislature under the district lines that were drawn after 2010. And it turns out that they changed the shape of the electorate so much through online voter reg, through voter mobilization and participation, that they got this two-thirds majority. This is something that Democratic operatives didn't expect. They related the opportunity to get a two-thirds majority, particularly in the state assembly, to the idea of Obama winning Alabama. And it turns out that Obama did win Alabama, in California at least. With respect to this, they also won the tax measure by double digits, and they changed the nature of the electorate such that they were able to change these rules and take away the tools of minority obstruction. And now the governor came out and said in January that we have a balanced budget in the initial projection. The January revenue returns were actually $5 billion ahead of his initial projection, the estimates for the month of January. So things are probably going better than he even expected. And now the big fight, the debate in the state of California is how many of these spending issues that were cut back during the Great Recession over and over again will be restored because we have this new landscape where the structural deficit has largely been wiped out.
All right.
And that Yeah.
Let me just stop you here, okay? Before we get to this sort of to where the progressives have been able to sort of change what the playing field is, I guess. But how is it? I mean, is there a sense? I mean, I imagine over the past couple of months when these organizations look back on what they did correctly in terms of voter mobilization. I mean, we have a standard algorithm from what we can expect for people who register in the month prior to the election. You can anticipate a certain percentage of them, which is generally lower than those who register before then will actually vote. This was higher. The online registration provided a higher yield, if you will. They were able to mobilize in such a way that they overcame this structural problem in terms of the way the districts were drawn. What accounted for that? Was it simply an effort that had been unparalleled in terms of organizing on the ground? Is there something to voter registration being made easier, which somehow, I mean, it's counterintuitive that easier voter registration would lead to a cohort that would vote more. I mean, so what accounts for that?
I think a couple things. First of all, with respect to voter registration, yes, it was easier, but it was also something that individuals could seek out for themselves. It seems like maybe they were more invested in it rather than they were accosted on the street and to get away from somebody they registered to vote. It seems that way, that when you give people the tools and they're able to do it quickly and easily, then they follow through with it. The other thing we have here in California is a large segment of the population votes by mail, and that's been growing every single year. And it's almost 50%, I believe, of the electorate votes early by mail. And that also makes it easier for people to vote. So if you make it easier for people to register, easier for people to vote, they tend to follow through on it. With respect to the mobilization, I think this is something that wasn't really a point of emphasis, particularly within the state Democratic Party, until a couple years ago. And it certainly wasn't a point of emphasis for the progressive communities on the ground. And I think what was done here was really taking sort of an Obama model and applying it to California, is that they were inside these communities and they walked these streets, and the people calling were their neighbors, and the people knocking on their doors were their neighbors. And it was a very block-to-block strategy that utilized a great deal of volunteers, tens of thousands, I believe, of volunteers, in order to highlight and target these communities that were infrequent voting communities. And so I think there was a lot of savvy on the part of progressive groups, and the Democratic Party did get involved in this within the 2012 cycle, to really target these communities that had a rich amount of Democratic votes, and turn them out. And the other thing that I was told from people who engaged in this effort is that if you give people something to vote for, the tax measure that was on the ballot was critical for public schools. And that brought out students in record numbers to come out and vote, and also to volunteer and ensure that the tax measure passed. And if you give people something to vote for that was critical to communities of color who would be the first in line for cuts to their schools, for students, for all these infrequent voting communities, they'll not only vote the way you want on that main issue, but they'll tend to vote the way you want down ballot.
Right.
And that's what ended up happening.
Now, the paradox here is that in terms of the ability to replicate this model in other states and to replicate this model in an off-year election is that on one hand, you had President Obama running. This was obviously a presidential election cycle, and that tends to drive more voters out, particularly, it seems, at least Democratic voters. But the paradox is, of course, it's very hard to find another state where they had the stakes of voting in the presidential election is lower because, of course, there was never a question as to whether or not California would end up voting for President Obama.
Right. That's definitely true. As far as how to associate this to what's happening at the national level. I mean, I think one of the early things that Democrats, frankly, in Washington flubbed is filibuster reform. I mean, if you want to take away the tools that minority parties can use to obstruct progress, the first thing you would have to say is that you take away that tool that makes 60 votes Senate, and they failed to do that. And so that, I think, was an example of failing to learn the lesson of California. When we had this majority, we changed the rules.
And
the second thing, as far as
and to add on that, before you get to that second thing, is that once you get rid of those structural barriers that allow for obstruction at such a massive scale, you then have the ability to propose and meaningfully propose initiatives that then the voter feels like they have some influence over if they actually go out and vote, as opposed to what we see in the Senate now, at least, that we can hear proposals from senators, but we know that they have an impossible bar to which to actually realize those initiatives.
That's absolutely true, and it ties into the second thing, is that the voter engagement was based around actually getting something out of the voting process. I believe it's Rick Perlstein who defines liberalism as freedom plus groceries. You actually get something tangible for your participation in the political process. And that was what was highlighted here in California. And if you do remove those structural tools of obstruction, and you actually campaign on things that are tangible and that can actually happen, and that provide tangible benefits to voting communities, then it's much easier lift to get those infrequent voters out to vote for very specific reasons. And so this is another way that you can sort of associate what happened here in California to the national level. It's not perfect, obviously. There are different dynamics between a state and a national election, but it does offer something of a roadmap and some lessons for how you can make this work. And California has always been sort of the harbinger. What happens here happens, all over. So that's a possibility.
And again, not to put too fine a point on it, but this was a sort of a double win insofar as that the ability to pass a budget became the ability to pass a budget with only a simple majority was realized, and simultaneously and unexpectedly, like you say, the need for that reform, at least in the short term, was negated because you had such an overwhelming victory by Democratic state legislators.
Exactly, and that brings us to sort of where we're at today, is that you have this two-thirds majority, so Democrats in the legislature could propose new taxes, because, the taxes that were passed are time-limited. We still have this structural issue with Prop 13. Somewhere down the line, you're going to have to figure out a better tax system for the state, and we have the ability to do that. Democrats have the ability to do that and propose that and pass that with just the participation of Democrats. They also have the ability to reverse a lot of the austerity cuts that we saw during the Great Recession, when they did have to sort of bring Republicans into the process, and when they couldn't raise taxes. There are billions and billions of cuts, major cuts, that really need to be restored for vulnerable communities. And Jerry Brown, essentially, the governor, Jerry Brown, doesn't really want to do that. He is cautioning against restoring a lot of these cuts. He's trying to pay down what they call a wall of debt. A lot of that debt is just sort of things from one part of the budget that are owed to another part of the budget. It's not clear to me why you have to pay it all down right now when there are these communities and things like child care, Medi-Cal, that are underfunded, welfare to work, things like that. And so it'll be interesting to see where this battle goes in the next year or two, whether Democrats in the legislature actually put up a fight against the governor and say, no, we have to restore some of these things it's critical to our communities, or if they will not essentially use the power granted to them by the people of California in their legislative session.
And of course, it'll also be interesting to see if these groups can replicate the effort in an off election year, and then
right, and in a governing capacity too. If they can force the issue through governing, not and use sort of the stick of the next election to force Democrats in the legislature to really take notice.
All right. Well, let's hope springs eternal for California. Like you say, what starts in California often makes it sweeps across the country. Those of us who watched the wave of inline skating and and roller skates, particularly those
Absolutely.
that snap out of your shoes back in the early 70s, know this to be the case.
The phrase "grody to the max," for example,
indeed,
swept the nation.
Skateboards, etc., etc.